While inspecting the train, Will discovered something alarming: the brake lines weren't properly connected. He urgently warned driver Ned not to start the train, but Ned insisted they were only moving it to the siding. Eager to get off work for lunch, Ned insisted on relocating the train first before connecting the brakes. But after Ned started the train, he realized the track ahead was the wrong direction. Years of experience told him it would take at least 20 car lengths to stop now. His partner Will urged him to proceed first and fix it later, but Ned didn't want to waste time. He made a clever yet foolish decision. Despite Will's desperate pleas to stay at the controls, Ned stubbornly jumped off the moving train. He intended to manually switch the tracks before the train arrived, unaware that vibrations had shifted the gear back to full speed. As he sprinted ahead to operate the switch, the train suddenly accelerated out of control. This scene left Ned utterly stunned. He scrambled to chase after it, trying to climb back into the cab. But the moment his hand touched the grab bar, he tripped and fell to the ground. In the instant he hit the ground, the train's wheels roared past his eyes. The thunderous screech of steel against steel shook the very earth beneath him. He could only watch helplessly as the beast roared off into the distance. A nearby co-worker witnessed the entire incident but offered no assistance, merely shaking his head with a cold smile. And so, an unmanned train began its reverse journey at full speed, marking the beginning of a true catastrophe. Ned and Will rushed to the dispatch center to inform Connie of the situation. Upon learning the train was driverless, Connie was stunned. Not only had the brakes not been engaged, but the driver had also abandoned his post without authorization. Will explained that Ned had set the independent brakes to limit speed below 15 kilometers per hour. Connie finally breathed a slight sigh of relief. She ordered them to take a maintenance car to chase the train and attempt to board the locomotive again. Unaware that the train's speed far exceeded their expectations, Connie immediately ordered all trains onto sidings to avoid a head-on collision while contacting the experienced Jed to intercept the runaway. But when Jed arrived at the designated spot, he saw nothing but smoke. Instead, he was met by Ned and Will, panting for breath. Evidently, the train had already sped past. Jed immediately reported the situation to Connie. Upon learning the train's speed far exceeded expectations, Connie instantly broke down. She hurriedly pulled up the freight manifest to confirm what the cars actually contained. The result? It was a train loaded with hazardous chemicals. 8 cars were filled with toxic liquids and 5,000 gallons of diesel fuel. The train was hurtling full speed toward a densely populated area. If it derailed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Connie immediately notified all police stations along the route to seal off railroad crossings. Sirens wailed intermittently across the small town. People paused their tasks, watching the distant, approaching flash of steel. No one knew if disaster would strike at that very moment. Worse still, a school bus packed with children traveled on the same main track. The children laughed and chattered, utterly unaware, while the runaway behemoth hurtled toward them head-on. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the driver reacted swiftly and successfully diverted the bus onto a siding. The near collision was narrowly averted. Everyone on board had narrowly escaped death. Meanwhile, Ned and Will continued driving the maintenance vehicle in pursuit of the uncontrolled monster. They attempted to reboard the train, but its speed had already surged to 80 miles per hour. Despite their best efforts, they fell just short, forced to watch helplessly as it vanished into the distance. News outlets began reporting this bizarre incident, and viewers nationwide watched the unmanned train's movements unfold on television. Connie coordinated track assignments while reporting to her superior, Calvin. She proposed derailing the train, but Calvin rejected the plan, citing the catastrophic losses it would cause and the plunge in company stock prices. Senior management decided to dispatch another locomotive to intercept train 777. Simultaneously, a helicopter was dispatched to airlift a driver to the locomotive. The plan seemed flawless, but they underestimated this 39-car monster. Veteran engineer Dewey volunteered to pilot the rescue locomotive into battle. The helicopter's rotors churned dust as the rescuer gripped the rope, gazing down at the raging Iron Dragon. Wind whistled past his ears, sparks lighting the night sky, a scene that made countless people hold their breath. He strained to control the speed, drawing the helicopter closer. After several violent collisions, the train's momentum finally slowed slightly. The airman was immediately lowered, but the moment his hands touched the roof, the immense inertia flung him away, his fate unknown. Dewey gritted his teeth, continuing to resist, attempting to steer the train onto a siding. Yet the colossal impact caused his locomotive to derail and overturn. Dewey perished instantly. The high-level plan had utterly failed. In that moment, all fell silent. Even the roar of engines sounded jarringly harsh. Connie fought back tears as she reorganized the dispatch. She noticed another train approaching head-on. On the map it was Frank driving 1206. Frank remained calm under pressure, steering 1206 onto the siding for an emergency evasion. Frank and 777 exchanged glances. They had successfully diverted onto the siding, but the last car of 1206 was still crushed by 777. In that instant, Frank noticed the coupling device at the rear of the runaway train remained open. This meant he might hook onto the train from behind and use reverse traction to slow it down. He immediately reported the plan to Connie, but upper management rejected it again. They intended to deploy a mobile derailleur ahead to derail the train. Simultaneously, armed police were dispatched to stand by on both sides of the tracks, aiming at the train's safety valves. Veteran Frank staked his career on this gamble. He was determined to try it. Meanwhile, gunfire erupted along the tracks. Bullets whizzed past the train's hull, sparks flying. Yet the train showed no sign of slowing, as if mocking humanity's helplessness. Just as Frank predicted, the derailment device proved utterly useless against the massive freight train. Instantly crushed into fragments, the higher-ups' plan had failed again. Now, Train 777 was drawing ever closer to the densely populated city of Stanton. Ahead lay a massive curve that could only be navigated at 25 miles per hour, with oil storage tanks lining the tracks below. If disaster struck, the entire city would be engulfed in flames. Frank and Will became everyone's last hope. They reversed their car to chase the runaway train, attempting to connect from the rear. Unable to gauge the distance, Will climbed to the rear of their car to act as Frank's eyes. The first attempt ended in failure. The collision caused the wheat inside the car to explode, sending shards flying everywhere. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Will urged Frank to try again. The second attempt succeeded in coupling the cars, but Frank realized the connector hadn't locked. Risking his life, he jumped down and manually pulled the latch into place, securing the connection. However, his right foot was crushed in the process, nearly causing him to fall. Just then, the dispatcher relayed a critical message. They were less than 6 kilometers from the deadly curve. He crawled back to the cab with great effort. Frank reassured him to keep operating. They initiated emergency braking. Sparks flew as speed dropped to 40 miles per hour. But the 777 was too heavy. Momentum quickly pulled it back up to 70.
What about the braking on the freight cars?
Good, good.
All right, I'm on it.
Oh, just sit down. Oh, no, I've got it. Sit tight, I'll go.
Frank decisively activated the independent brakes on each car. This successfully slowed the train to 25 miles per hour. More critically, the overheated braking system failed completely, causing the train's speed to surge again. It was closing in on that deadly curve. Just 1 second before entering the curve, Will pulled the final brake. The massive wheels screeched with a shrill, grinding sound. Miraculously, the train navigated the curve without derailing or exploding. The crowd erupted in cheers as everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Yet the danger wasn't over. Frank pressed on toward the locomotive, determined to bring the train to a complete halt. But the gap between cars stood like a grim reaper, blocking his path. Just then, Jed caught up in his pickup, pulling alongside Will. Dragging his injured leg, Will leaped onto the truck bed. Jed accelerated toward the locomotive, giving Will a chance to jump aboard. Will took a deep breath, grabbed the railing, and pulled himself into the cab with all his strength. He finally managed to pull the emergency brake. The train's roar gradually subsided. Everyone cheered. The hours-long disaster had finally ended. TV cameras captured this moment. Countless viewers applauded and cheered in front of their screens. The sounds of fire trucks and sirens intertwined. That night, everyone remembered these ordinary people who risked their lives to save the city. Connie wept with emotion as national media broadcast this miraculous rescue live. The runaway 777 finally ground to a halt on the tracks. Applause erupted for the heroes who risked their lives. This film adapts a true 2001 incident in Ohio. Director Tony Scott refused CGI. All trains and explosions were filmed live. Real steel collisions and genuine sparks heightened the film's oppressive intensity. In that actual accident, the train numbered 8888 also narrowly avoided catastrophe. Millions witnessed the live broadcast. The line between reality and film vanished in that moment.